With the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen currently running and heading into the climax, certain reveals are about to come when it comes to the fake Geto. And if you read the manga, you're very aware of what this reveal is going to be. Thinking about this moment specifically has made me think of Noritoshi Kamo. Not that one, but this one. And I'm gonna say it straight up, the man has a bigger role than we think he does. Noritoshi Kamo is the primary character who is next head of, and essentially represents the Kamo family in the story. In terms of political importance and potential, he's close to being just as important as Megumi is to the society of Jujutsu as a sorcerer. In the series, there are three big families that hold the most prestige and influence due to their bloodline talent for Jujutsu. These sorcerer families of the Jujutsu world, being the Zenin, Gojo, and lastly, the Kamo. These three distinguished clans have existed for a very long time, even prospering within the Heian era, which was known as the Golden Age of Sorcery. These clans are very proud of their status, but having to share such a high status, coupled with the history of these clans, causes them to have a rivalry with one another in a peaceful modern day. But what allows these clans to stick out to this day, and even stand on top of Jujutsu society, are their respective curse techniques. Members of these families, possessing a huge amount of talent in terms of Jujutsu, and usually passing down their respective prized techniques from generation to generation. For the Gojo clan, their prized curse technique is the Limitless, which is shown by Gojo to be extremely powerful and almost unparalleled in combination with his six eyes throughout the entire story. The Zenin have Megumi Fushiguro, who's in possession of their respective curse technique, the 10 Shadows. Although Megumi hasn't been on Gojo's level, we see how powerful this technique is through Sukuna, and also a statement by Gojo himself, insinuating that the 10 Shadows alone is equivalent to the combination of the 6 eyes and the Limitless. And lastly, the prize curse technique of the Kamo clan is blood manipulation, and as the name suggests, it allows the user to manipulate blood. The holder of this technique is Noritoshi Kamo, and as Megumi even once said, it's very fitting for someone from one of the three big families who values bloodline so much. Noritoshi Kamo is the child of the previous clan head and his mistress. Since his father's legal wife never had a child with blood manipulation, Kamo was the one who was chosen to be the next clan head. As Noritoshi Kamo was raised and brought up in a way to uphold the values and ideals of the Kamo clan, deep down inside, he's never truly believed in them. As Kamo's mother was excommunicated from the clan due to being a mistress, despite her giving birth to Kamo, who's the current holder of the prized blood possession, they considered her to be a rotten concubine. As Kamo's mother is the center of his entire life, he despises the fact that the rest of the clan treated her like trash, and essentially being separated from her because of the circumstances in which he was born, and thus, Kamo resolves to create a home where they can eventually reunite. And a part of achieving this goal is behaving befitting of the Kamo clan in order to gain enough fluence to welcome his mother back into it. Kamo was so committed to this goal that he'd stick to it even if it included going against his morals. When fighting against Megumi in chapter 44, he says to him, "You've grown, I'm happy for you." And Megumi responds with, "What's with the camaraderie?" And Kamo says, "It's sympathy. You're someone who will eventually support the three head clans. I intend to kill Itadori Yuji." When Megumi asks if these are orders from Gakuganji, Kamo says, "Nope, it's my personal judgment. I think it's the correct decision, as someone from the three head clans, from the Kamo clan." This is coupled with an internal thought of him saying to himself that he has to behave like the heir of the Kamo clan after saying such things. It doesn't take rocket science to interpret that Kamo is lying to himself for the sake of moving forward towards this goal. This is how important his mother was to him. Something I also want to point out here is that Kamo does seem to reach out to Megumi in some sort of silent cry for help. He tells Megumi that they're the same deep down, and with Megumi refusing to listen to anything per usual, which is foreshadowing as to how he fought Reggie when he could have made an ally instead, leading up to him being cursed and losing everything. He doesn't listen to what Kamo's saying, and completely misunderstands it. Kamo perceives Megumi as another head of household like himself here, and although it's not confirmed that Megumi was the clan head at this moment, Megumi is exactly what Kamo is, but for the Zenin clan instead. Kamo being raised into politics knew that Megumi would eventually become the clan head, one way or another, and this is why Kamo's repeating to Megumi that we are the same. It wasn't an attempt to convince Megumi that he is like Kamo, but instead, the other way around. Kamo was attempting to convince Megumi that he is like him. He says this after letting Megumi know that he's taking orders from Gakuganji, and this was likely in the hopes that Megumi is able to pick up on his true nature. And speaking of Kamo and Megumi, those two alongside Gojo are the three heirs of the three big clans. And what they all have in common is the fact that they do, deep down inside, have a decent moral compass and know at least what's right. And although Kamo isn't part of the main cast unlike the other two, he's still a true clan head, and the primary representative of the Kamo clan that we have in the story. I don't think Gege would lay out such a foundation for this character and do nothing with it. As much as people like to make this claim, they're either just not reading, or it's just not true. We move ahead about 140 chapters to where Noritoshi returns to the Kamo household in the aftermath of the Shibuya incident. As he comes across Shino, he claims to him that he needs to contact Gakuganji and the other two clans, to which Shino just asks him, "How'd you get in here?" Shino begins to talk about the past, as Kamo just says, "I can't play with these jokes. Don't tell me you've forgotten about the face of the next clan head." And Shino then responds, "I would never mistake the face of the clan head. You look nothing like Noritoshi." Kamo then says, "But I am." Kamo realizes that he's not the Noritoshi that Shino's speaking of, and frantically runs across the clan settlement, finding Kenjaku in a room. And if you remember, it was revealed by Choso that Kenjaku was the original Noritoshi Kamo, or at least the person who possessed him to commit the cruel acts that would deem him to be the most evil sorcerer in the world. Kenjaku's already explaining what's going on, to let Kamo know that he was far ahead of his plan, and that he's even late. Kamo refers to Kenjaku as Geto, and Kenjaku says, "You know what my name is, because you've learned about it in Shibuya." And as Kenjaku casually flexes about knowing Kamo's entire plan, he calls Kamo impressive for even making such a plan. And then he goes on to let Kamo know that he's taken over the entire clan, and that everything our Kamo once owned is his now. There's no place for him, and they will never meet again. Kamo readies himself for battle, and Kenjaku just laughs at him, saying that even if Kamo lives, there is nothing he can do. He tells him to disappear so he doesn't have to get the room dirty by killing him. As you can see here, Kenjaku has taken everything from Kamo in an instant, and then told him to just get out of his sight as if he were an insect. It's so ironic because Noritoshi Kamo was named after the previous Kamo, the one who was deemed as the most evil sorcerer in history, in order to cleanse and replace the previous history of that name. Kamo's mother hoped that her Kamo would be so great as a sorcerer that he was who people thought of when the name Noritoshi Kamo was said, all for the exact opposite to happen. Kenjaku, or in other words the previous Noritoshi Kamo, essentially erased our Kamo from the history of the clan in a twisted turn of events. This shows us that Kamo's loss to Kenjaku here means that he's failed his mother, his life purpose, in more ways than one. And this same moment plays a huge role in his fight against Naoya, where he thinks about his failure in saving his mother, asking himself, what would mother say? Would she blame me for not becoming the clan head? I couldn't even make a place for her in that house. Mother, even so, I don't belong anywhere because... And as Naoya beats him to a pulp, he continues to fight and push forward, saying even if I'm no longer needed, then let me set my life ablaze, so that at the very least, my companions' lives will burn brightly on my ashes. As we can see in this page, there's somewhat of a ring of blood around Noritoshi, and we can presume that he was about to do something with all that he has left. What was he going to do? Who knows? What I know from this quote is that Noritoshi's loss of everything has pushed him to stand against what is easily the strongest cursed spirit we've seen in the series so far. The trauma that Kenjaku had inflicted upon him by stealing everything he had worked for in an instant caused him to finally have a reason to put his life completely on the line in battle. But if I had to guess, it was going to be a maximum technique. Everything leading up to this moment shows Kamo's fortitude. He has no reason to be here, and he could have genuinely walked away from all of this the moment he lost everything. But he continued on to the Culling game and fought Naoya all to his last breath because of his duty and responsibility as a sorcerer. This moment reminds me when Gojo lectured Megumi about swinging for the fences, rather than bunting the ball for others to advance, saying that sorcery is not a team sport, and that dying victoriously and to die and then win are two different things. Upon understanding this, Megumi was then able to amplify his strength and cast a domain expansion, giving him a huge power-up. Kamo seems to not understand this yet, but for how far he got against Naoya, despite not having such a philosophy as a sorcerer, is still impressive. So despite everything I've said, there's a huge elephant in the room. This being Kamo's power level and how he's essentially an inferior Choso in every single way. To that I say, well, I've got nothing. All we can do is see how the story plays out, and hopefully Kamo gets some massive power boost. An RCT could really help Kamo out as a sorcerer, or maybe he obtains access to his clan's secrets, just like how the Gojo and Zenin clan have their own, and this could allow him to use and learn techniques that Choso can't. Maybe even pulling out a gun and using that with blood manipulation. Anything at this point. With Gojo and Sukuna just happening, it's really shown me that techniques are as potent and flexible as its user. So couple that with Kamo's intelligence and I'm sure that he could figure something out. Speaking of Gojo, with his death at the hands of Sukuna, Kamo's the only one left of the 3 heads left in the story. And as he's been missing throughout the entire Sukuna vs Gojo fight, similar to how Takaba was, I think Gege's gonna have him pop up very soon. To conclude, I want to bring up how I believe that there will be narrative value in Kamo coming back and fighting Kenjaku once more. Because if anybody deserves to be included in this fight against Kenjaku, it has to be Kamo. Kamo again has had everything stolen from him, including his purpose from Kenjaku in an instant. And Kenjaku's stain on the Kamo family would come back to bite him as well. With Yuji also being one who's likely going to fight Kenjaku, it'll be 3 characters that had their families heavily screwed with by Kenjaku, and are also descendants of his host. When it comes to Choso, who's obviously another Kenjaku contender, he has a giant and long-standing conflict with him. And with Kenjaku always seeming to deal a huge emotional blow to Choso every time they meet, it would be cool to see him involved in this battle as well. A lot of people have a reason to fight Kenjaku, but most of all, I think it should be Yuji, Kamo, and Choso, his own descendants, remnants of his blood, discarded non-factors, people who had their lives destroyed by him, coming back and crushing him. Gege Akutami tends to deliver a message with each and one of his characters, and Kamo provides Gege the opportunity to display to people what it's like to slowly lose everything, and then get hit even harder when you believe everything is gone already, and then to slowly climb back up. Teaching people to never give up no matter how bad things get, because you can turn it all around as long as you put in the effort and try. And we see things slowly got better for Kamo after the Naoya fight, gaining some sort of confirmation that maybe his mother never abandoned him in the first place. In the end, I believe that this is what Gege will be going for with Kamo, and hopefully he comes back and does something major against Kenjaku, because if anybody's been hit by Kenjaku the hardest, it has to be him. Although I think this would be the perfect conclusion for Kamo, this is Jujutsu Kaisen we're reading, and anything can really happen. We never get what we want, but we always have to see the best in what we find, right? With that being said, thank you so much for watching all the way through, guys. I always appreciate the love and support. I think I'm just going to be sticking more into like the introspective, analytical type of content because you guys seem to really like it. So, yeah. With that being said, sorry again. Have a great day, guys. Peace out.